Do you plan to receive an inheritance at some point down the road or in retirement? How do you plan for that inheritance? Do you rely on it? Do you build it into your retirement plan? All of that's very important as you move forward into and through retirement. So in this video, I'm going to break it down in our software and show you what you need to do as an inheritance comes into your plan to make sure that you don't hit a big speed bump down the road in retirement that could be very costly to you. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and if you like these videos, hit the thumbs up. It really does help get these videos out to more people so that more Canadians can learn about retiring, paying CRA less money, and just being in a better situation as they walk through retirement. So here we have Mrs. YouTube, who'd been able to save $200,000 in her RRSP and $50,000 in the TFSA. So $250,000 saved, individual, 65 years old, looking to retire. And as we build out the retirement plan, you can see here, if we do an RSP meltdown, look at CPP time, we've done a bit of planning in here. And you may remember this scenario from about a month ago on retiring with $250,000. She has about $34,000 of annual income after tax and adjusted to inflation. Now, what she's concerned about is that may not be enough money for her. Now, while we can maybe ladder this a little bit, we weren't able to get to the number that she was looking for. And she said, you know what, Adam, even though this isn't enough and I'm just done. I'm 65, I want to retire, I can't work another day. I do expect a bit of an inheritance down the road. So what would this look like if I maybe front end loaded some spending with the expectation that I'm going to get an inheritance later? And a lot of you are sitting in this situation where your parents or maybe an aunt and uncle or someone in your family is going to leave you an inheritance. Now, you may not know the exact number. It might be 50, it might be 500, it might be 5 million. We've seen many different numbers come in through inheritances, but you expect something. So again, if you expect some money injected into your plan, there's two mindsets here, and I need to make sure you're going down the right path with this mindset. Mindset number one was this client, which is, I don't really have enough to do the retirement that I want to live, but if I get that inheritance, I could maybe spend all my money early and then the inheritance money later. Obviously, the big concern with that, what happens if that inheritance money never comes in? Maybe your parents live longer than expected and spend more. They go to care facility. They leave the money to other people. They've donated the money. There's many reasons why that money may not come in. So relying on an inheritance is very dangerous. Now, again, on the flip side, if this client had more than enough and they weren't relying on it, but they said, hey, Adam, I have enough and it's no problem. But if I get an injection of $100,000 to $500,000 down the road, how does that affect me from a tax standpoint? Am I going to have old age security clawback? Am I going to have more taxes? How do I structure things to make sure that I don't fall into a tax trap when that inheritance or if that inheritance comes through at a later date? So when we look at the original plan we built, you can see with RSP Meltdown, we're retaining that TFSA as long as possible, create some flexibility. But it really is $34,000 until age 90, which is when she wanted to plan out for. Now, it's a good tax situation we've built well, but again, she's wanting to spend more money and wanted us to build in this inheritance. So she told us she expects a $250,000 inheritance in roughly 10 years. So what we did is we put an inheritance of $250,000 in here and then bumped up her spending in the go-go phase to $45,000 after tax and adjusted to inflation, which is what she was wanting to have to live the lifestyle in retirement, especially in that go-go phase. And you can see here when we've ramped up the income to $45,000, there's a lot of concerns I have here. First off, we're drawing down the RSP very quickly, so she's front-ending her tax situation, which, again, we want to level this out and not front-end it. But you can see her tax rate's about 8-9%. For the first 10 years, and then it drops to zero because she's just spending the cash from her inheritance. Now, obviously, a big concern is in 2033 at age 74, there's a shortfall. Now, there's only $3,600, but it does show that, things have to go perfect for you not to run out of money. Or what happens if that inheritance comes in a year or 2 or 5 years later? You're actually running out of money. You're leaving yourself in a very, very difficult situation. We've had to start CPP earlier, which was not beneficial for her. And so this is not a great plan. And this is a situation where relying on the inheritance could be very costly for this client. Now, again, if we took the same situation and injected $250,000 into the plan, but she was already collecting that $45,000, she had enough, she didn't need that inheritance to survive. What you want to do is still map that in. And I get clients all the time saying, Adam, like, I expect an inheritance down the road, but I don't know when and how much, so just leave it out altogether. Then you need to have this conversation. If you get an inheritance down the road, if you receive a lump sum of money, and try and figure out ballpark what that is. Because a lot of you, your parents are selling real estate. They haven't spent down their money. It could be $200, $500, $1 million. It could be a large lump sum of money. What is your intention with that? If your retirement plan without any inheritance shows that you have enough for cash flow spending, then that inheritance is actually not needed. So what is your plan with it? Are you going to collect it and just sit on it and then eventually pass it down maybe to kids or nephews, nieces, charities, whoever you want to leave your money to? Or are you going to kind of flow it through to the next generation? And if you're going to flow it through to the next generation, then of course, if your plan shows that you have enough and more than enough to kind of live the retirement you want to live, that inheritance has zero impact on you. So I encourage you, it's probably best to flow it through to your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, the charities, again, whoever you want to leave the money to. Sitting on, let's say, $500,000 comes into your plan. If you have a fair amount of money already and you don't need this, that $500,000, well, maybe you have room in your TFSA account, but for a lot of you, you're maxed out. So now this money's sitting in cash. It's earning interest. It's earning capital gains, dividends. It might be clawing back your old age security. So again, have your financial planner run an inheritance injection into your plan. And maybe make it a bit bigger than you think, just in case that does come through. And how does that affect your plan from a tax situation, a clawback situation, other benefits? You have to look at all these things that encompass your overall retirement cash flow. So if you're going to get inheritance, have the conversation of, A, do we need it? And if we don't, does it make sense to kind of flow it through and pass it on to the next generation that are paying 5, 6, 7, 8% on their mortgages, and they could pay that off? Again, how do we create generational wealth? It's not passing money from a 90-year-old to a 70-year-old and keep doing that at the high end. It's getting that money down so that your kids can pay off their mortgages earlier, so that they can help their kids earlier. That's how you create the generational wealth. So it's not just helping your kids though, it's also, if I just sit on that $500,000, it's at a higher tax rate for me. It's clawing back. It's actually a detriment to my retirement plan to receive that inheritance and hold on to it. And this is why it's really important to make sure you map out this inheritance situation into your plan. So do you want to rely on an inheritance to fund your cash flow in retirement? I would say not. There's a lot of risks there, the timing of it. You don't know when you're going to get an inheritance. Very risky. And like the situation I showed you here, it could be very detrimental to your retirement. But if you know you're going to get an inheritance at some point, it is good to plan for it. Have the conversation around it. Look at the tax planning around it. So don't rely on it, but you need to plan for it.